Our next lesson on the foundations of Rome are about Tarquinius Priscus. He's the first of the Etruscan kings. The last three kings of Rome are referred to as the Etruscan kings. They're still legendary, almost certainly didn't exist, or if they did exist, this isn't really their stories, and they ruled Rome for just over 100 years. And the first one is Tarquinius Priscus, who reigned from 616 BC to 578 BC, but again, not really. Details of the Etruscan civilization and the accession of Priscus, how somebody becomes king, is called the accession. Understand why the Etruscans are so insignificant to early years of Rome. Natives, if you're from somewhere, you're a native. Orientalized, which means you're affected by people in the East. Hellenistic, Hellenes, Greek-like. Architecture, style of building. Engineering, tombs, where you bury people. Rites, trade. Demaratus is a name. Corinth is a city. Ambitus, we'll talk about that in a while. Not quite ambition, but similar. And largesse, giving money away as a bribe, is largesse. So our quiz on Ancus, read the questions, look at the previous video. If you don't know the answers, you need to know these. And let's start. So let's do a bit more work on the Etruscans. As looked in a previous lesson, Etruria is an area to the north of Rome, a series of city-states, and the people there are called the Etruscans. So it's not a country, it's independent cities. At the time we're talking about, sort of 600 or so BC, way in advance of anything in Rome, the Etruscans built cities like this. Stone, no mud huts. Yeah. Statues, art, the lot. They had a written alphabet. Quite complicated and beautiful art you can see in museums. So the Etruscans are not a bunch of yahoos, they're not a bunch of cavemen. They're quite a long way in advance of the Romans at this time. They can build cities, build sewers, water supplies, all that stuff we think of as Roman is originally Etruscan. Now, there's a bit of a mystery here. How is it, this is actual what historians think rather than the legends. How might they have gotten involved in Rome? And there's two possibilities. There's one. It's possible that Etruscans simply conquered Rome and ruled Rome directly. That's perfectly possible. There's no archaeology to back that up. We know Etruscans ruled Rome. We know these Etruscans were in charge of Rome, but there's no clear evidence that they took over by force. They might have done, but probably people think more likely is two, to do with the political situation of the time, what is considered normal. It's quite possible that what you had was an Etruscan warlord with a small private army, a gang, who moved to Rome and was allowed to live there because no one could stop him, and said, I'm moving to Rome, I will protect you. It's more that sort of thing. I'd rather forget the word king, think of chief. Some Etruscan chief and his little 500-man army moved to Rome and is allowed in because he'll protect the place. Possibly it's something to do with that. But let's get on to the story as told by Livy and Dionysius and the others. These Etruscan kings of Rome are from the city of Tarquini, which still exists today. This is it today. Yeah. So they're from Tarquini, which is about 20-30 miles north of Rome, in Etruria. A particular rich family in Tarquini, very ambitious, led by a man called Demaratus. But they could not stay in Tarquini because it was felt that they could never be king because they're not Etruscans. They're originally Greeks. Demaratus is said to have been from Greece, fled to Tarquini, done very well for himself. He had a son, Lucamo, Lucumo had a wife, Tanaquil, and they very rich, very powerful, but could not become the leaders of Tarquini because they're not Etruscans, and the Etruscans won't accept them, which is not the case in Rome. Rome is, by this point, kind of story is famous for accepting people who are not Roman to Rome. So Lucumo and his followers and everything go to Rome, seeking their fortune, seeking their future. According to the story, as Lucumo enters Rome, an eagle flies down and steals his hat. This is said to be a fantastic omen for the future from the gods. This is a message from the gods that you're going to be a king. So Lucumo enters Rome, goes to see the king, Ancus, says he wants to live there. He's got a lot of money, more money than he can spend his entire life. He's going to help use it on Rome. He's a great warrior. He's got men. So he's welcomed into Rome, given a bit of land, spends his money, builds temples, gives away money, called largesse, giving away all his gold. Very brave in battle, leads his men, does great things for Rome, so that when Ancus finally dies, the Romans elect him king. Ancus has sons, but they're quite young and they're away hunting at the time, so they don't get a say in this. When they get back from the hunt, their dad's dead, and this guy, remember his name, Priscus, has become king. How come he's called Priscus, not Lucumo? He's changed his name. When he enters Rome, that's an Etruscan name. He changed his name to Priscus, because it's a Roman name, and he's known as Priscus Tarquinius because he's from the city of Tarquini. Yeah? So he's Lucumo when he enters, changed his name to Priscus because it's a Roman name, and he's known as Priscus Tarquinius, and his family called the Tarquins because they are from the Etruscan city of Tarquini. And lastly, ambitus. It's similar to our word ambition, wanting to do very well, except it's got quite a negative connotation in Roman literature. It's a bad thing. It's people who want to succeed at any cost, who will do things they possibly shouldn't do to get on, like bribing people, which is what Priscus is accused of. So that's ambitus.